Okay. Hello, everybody. Thank you to those of you who are joining us today. And today is World Prematurity Day. So, as you know, we've been holding a few sessions daily from Sunday all the way till Thursday this week, obviously in support of awareness of this very special day. We've been talking to a lot of warrior mamas, and we continue to do so for the rest of the week, as well as professionals in the field who can also share some of their experiences, but also share some of their work and what they do in support of families who've had premature birth. So I'm hearing my echo. I don't know if you can hear that too, but okay, I think it's gone now. So I'm Shereen. I'm the founder of Belly Baby Mom. I'm a doula, I'm a childbirth educator, and a breastfeeding counselor. And this episode or show, I have with me the lovely Louisa, who's going to be sharing with us her story of struggle. And in just a moment, is going to tell us all about herself and, of course, share her experience. So these series of talks are in collaboration with Pigeon, who have always been actually very supportive in a lot of the competitions with giveaways and things that we've been having since COVID started. And so I'm really glad that they have wanted to collaborate on this initiative. And of course, also Small and Mighty Babies, who have been amazing in coordinating lots of these talks as well, since they are that support system that a lot of these families need. So thank you to Small and Mighty Babies and to Pigeon. And now we get to Louisa. Hi, Louisa. How are you doing today?
Good. Thank you for having me.
Yeah, so you shared some of your story, or a lot of your story with me, I should say. And just, I know you emailed it to me, and it is obviously a very challenging time that you've gone through, just as with a lot of the other beautiful warrior mamas that we've spoken to and will be speaking to. Can you tell us a little bit about yourself before we delve into your story?
Yeah, sure. So I'm from the UK originally. I've been in the UAE for the last 7.5 years. I work in a nursery. I'm an assistant manager of a nursery here. I had Ava Rose. She's now 3 and 9 months. We're kind of, out of the sort of the definitely out of the preemie stage, and a lot further forward than some of the other mums. So yeah.
All right. So obviously the idea of us kind of hosting these talks is obviously to have that space where women such as yourself can share their stories in the hopes of other families who may be experiencing the same, and just know that there are other women who have gone through the same, and hopefully for most of it have come out of it or are working towards a more happy and fulfilling life for both themselves and their children. But also what's important to note is it's not only for these families. I think it's important for organizations, companies, individuals who haven't gone through those experiences to really understand what it's like to have to be in that position, really, for different reasons. Yeah. So Louisa, take us back to the start when you were expecting. What happened?
Sure. So I fell pregnant very quickly, which was amazing. And I was not a very good pregnant person. I was very, very ill the whole time. I was constantly feeling sick. I had a bleed at 10 weeks. And we went to the hospital that day, and they gave me a scan, and they said it was a twin sac bleeding out. So, and I think that might have been why she was early. Because we have no other reasons. And if we hadn't gone to the hospital that day, we'd never have known about that situation. So then the rest of the pregnancy continued. I still felt very ill, but I was fine. I'd just got to the start to about 24, 25 weeks where I was starting to not feel as nauseous. And at 26 weeks, I started having a discharge that was more than I thought it should be. So we went to the hospital and they gave me a scan and they said that you have something called PROM, which I'd never heard of. And there was a leak in my sac, and that I just had to go on bed rest. And they gave me the steroid injections to open the baby's lungs. So yeah, I went to bed rest. I was extremely thirsty. Like, it was amazing how your body just knows that you need to drink gallons and gallons and gallons of water a day. And actually, we then went into, I then contacted my best friends and I was like, can you please research this? Because I'm too scared to Google this. So can you please be my Google sort of, not radar, it's a filter. So I'm not going to see so many really bad stories. I just need to know the facts. And also my husband's cousin works with premature babies, so she could help us as well from the medical side, which was great. So I was very lucky to have that. But I remember at that point just thinking, I just need to know facts and good stories. I just need to know that. I don't need to know everything. So I was in Russell Cambridge at the time, because we lived there, but I was planning to give birth in the UK. So, and my hospital knew that. So I saw the consultant. I was on bed rest for about a week in RAC. And then the consultant saw me and she said, right, I know you need to go back to the UK. We can't take you at this hospital because it was a private hospital. You'd have to go to one with a NICU, obviously. And so she gave me a note to get on a plane in the next 24 hours. So we went home and quickly packed a bag and got on the flight. Well, I got on the flight. My husband stayed here because we thought we'd probably have quite a bit longer, because you can keep going up until your due date like that, as long as you don't get an infection, from my understanding. So quickly got on a flight and got back to the UK. Got back to my parents' house. It was fine. The flight was fine. Actually, on the flight, I was remembering this earlier. On the flight, I sat next to, or very near this man, and we got chatting at the end of the flight. And he was saying, because he saw I was pregnant, and he said, "Oh, I had a premature. My son was premature actually," and he was telling me about his son was born at 29 weeks, but he was now a Olympic athlete. And he was sort of telling me the story without knowing my situation. And we got to the end of the flight and I told him my situation. He was like, "Oh, I'm so sorry. I shouldn't have told you that story." And I said, no. That was really good to hear that story. I think you were meant to sit there and you were meant to tell me that story. Give me hope. So anyway, got back to my parents, woke up the next morning. I had a doctor's appointment booked already. And I woke up with a fever. So I knew at that point that it was probably, I was probably going to have to, go into hospital. So I went to the doctors, they put me into hospital, they were monitoring me, and then they put me in the maternity ward, and then they put me near my mouth, and then they kept saying, "But no, you won't give birth, you're fine, you won't give birth." And then they said, "We're going to transfer you to the next hospital." At this point, I'm like, "Really? I'm not giving birth? Are you sure?" And they said, "No, just for a week, and then you'll come back because we can't take you at this under 28 weeks. So I got to the next hospital, and they said immediately, "No, you're giving birth tonight." So I got on the phone very quickly to my husband and said, "You need to get on a flight now." So he quickly booked a flight, got to Dubai airport and got back to the UK. And the poor man had to do a flight not knowing what was happening.
Because you hadn't told him what was happening.
Well, all he knew is that I was going to give birth that night. That was all he knew. He didn't know. We didn't know if we were having a boy or a girl. We didn't know, and he didn't know. He couldn't get any updates on the plane. So he had to spend the whole time on the plane just sitting there in absolute panic until he got to the other side, where my dad was waiting for him. And then I was taken in. I had a most incredible midwife, thank goodness, and that made a big, big difference. Because obviously, I think normally you I don't know how normal birth goes because I've only given birth once. So I don't think normally you'd meet the midwife before and you would have a relationship, I think anyway. But this woman was just...
In the UK, not here, really. You get to meet them, during.
Yeah, that's what happened to me anyway. But she was absolutely incredible, and she just kind of kept me focused, and everything. The staff, all of the staff, just had this incredible way of keeping you calm in a very serious situation, and that was just incredible. So she basically just held my hand, and then I was put to sleep because they wanted to get her out quickly, just because they were worried about the risk of infection. And then my midwife was there when I woke up, and she was just absolutely incredible. So yeah. So then she was obviously then taken to NICU. She was born breathing, which was great, and I think that was because she had the steroid injections. And she was okay. You know, she was small. She was 995 grams, I think. So she was small, but she was fine. There was nothing sort of major wrong. She was put on the CPAP just to help her. Sorry. and she was put into NICU, and she spent, I think, about 3 weeks in intensive care. But they had the space. I think she was probably okay to move a little bit before then, but they had the space, so they wanted to monitor her. I was very lucky. I was able to stay in the hospital with her. They had, I think, 4 bedrooms, and I spent 6 weeks there, which was very, very lucky, and a massive help. So yeah, she spent 3 weeks in the NICU. Then I was breastfeeding, or trying to pump, because obviously you can't breastfeed at that stage. I really struggled with the pumping. I was drinking lots of water. I was pumping every 3 hours. I was doing all the things that were recommended. I was taking the drugs even to try and promote the milk coming. And it didn't really ever come with me. I tried for months, and it just didn't ever. I never got more than sort of like 10 mils or 20 mils at a time. If I got 20 mils, I was doing well, having a good day. And so luckily there was donor milk in the hospital. So she had donor milk to begin with. And she was tiny, so she didn't need much milk. And for the first probably month, I was able to keep up with her demand because she was so tiny. So she was only having little bits anyway. And she was then being topped up with the donor milk if it was needed. And then she went into special care baby unit at about 3 weeks. And she was getting bigger, and I just couldn't keep up with the demand. So they said, we need to introduce some formula. So I said, fine, because she was going to be transferred to our local hospital at some point, and they didn't have donor milk. So they put her on formula. She had just a little bit to begin with. I went out for lunch for the first time I'd left the hospital, and came back, and there were doctors all around her. She'd had, we think anyway, we still don't 100% know that it was a reaction to the cow's milk. And she had green bile coming out of her. It was terrifying. So she was rushed back down to the intensive care, where she spent 10 days nil by mouth, just on this, I don't know, like this, whatever they give them. I think it's like a sugar formula with all the nutrients they need in, basically, but just keeps them going, but allows their digestive system to rest. And at that point, they thought it was suspected neck, which is sort of the doctor's worst nightmare, or one of the worst nightmares in the premature babies. So she was very closely monitored, obviously. I think she spent 2 weeks back in there, and then just made a recovery. She was okay, and we still don't know, if it was the milk or if it was maybe something coming. But anyway, she recovered. She then went back into special care baby unit, and was great. She then just continued to thrive. She was put on a dairy-free milk, and I was still continuing to attempt to pump, and giving her what I could. And she spent another probably week or so there. I think we're in the intensive care hospital for about 6 weeks in total, maybe a little bit longer. And then there was space in our local hospital, so we were transferred there. So I don't know, I found the NICU bit, and this might sound strange, I found the NICU bit the easiest bit, which I think to most people would be a bit strange, but I felt very supported. Obviously, I had my family around me, which was amazing, and my husband's family. But I felt very supported by all the consultants, by the nurses, and I made some really good connections with the families there as well. And I think because I was living in, and some of us, some of the parents were living in you get a chance to sort of really bond with the mums, and you're going through the same things. So, and I'm still friends with them now, which is lovely. But yeah, I felt I think I felt as secure as I could do within that situation. I was also massively in shock, obviously, because you are when you've had this situation.
Right.
And that's also, you know, a lot of the mums in there were twins or triplets mums. And I think they expect to spend some time in the NICU. That's kind of, they're prepared for that by, you know, the doctors when they're pregnant, you know, and lots of them had a tour of the NICU, so they knew what to expect. But I think for mums who, you know, just with a single child, you know, we unless you've had an experience or your friends have had experience, you've no idea about the NICU. Like it's never really entered my head. Yeah.
Let me ask you then, have you then done any preparation for birth, like any classes? I mean, what were you doing ahead of time?
Book, which we read up to, we were reading kind of week by week, and then we hadn't really prepared because we were going to go. I was going to go back to the UK, and then I was going to do some classes, and I was going to do it for the last bit. So we were completely unprepared, if I'm being honest. Which we wouldn't have been prepared for that anyway. So
no, exactly. You know, no, it's just
exactly.
when you're around 20 plus weeks, you know, that's the time usually I'm with, you know, with those women, you know, with child classes, and you know, they're on that journey, kind of, but preparing for that birth, the normal birth, right?
The normal birth.
Yeah. So I was just wondering, like, what were you doing at that point?
I think because we knew that we were going back to the UK, I thought, well, I'll just do it at the end. We'll make that work. And I wanted to spend as much time as I could with my husband in here before I left. So best laid plans. Huh?
That's, you know, for you to mention, you know, the support that you had. I think that's so important because, you know, with a lot of families with this happening to them here, and this is not their home, I think this just adds to that, you know, craziness of a situation, right? Because it's, you know, the whole situation is pretty shocking in itself, and then on top of that, you don't have your family, you can't really fly. They, you know, might or might not be able to come, and it's just not the same to be within your circle of, you know, family, all your family and your friends and your people, you know. And so I think that's where, you know, it's nice for these families here to kind of seek that support in other families going through the same, or organizations such as Small and Mighty Babies, and you know, that can kind of offer that support and connect families together.
Yeah, definitely. That's really important because nobody really understands what you're going through unless they've been through it, like anything. And you know, it is a difficult thing to go through, and you know, your baby can go downhill very quickly. You know, we were lucky in our NICU that there was one death, which was awful, but you know, considering how many babies were in there and the seriousness of a lot of the situations, it was, you know, incredibly lucky that there wasn't any more. And yeah, it's so important to make connections with people who've had a similar situation, so they can really understand what you're going through.
So after how many weeks you said you spent? 6 weeks? About 6 weeks?
About 6 weeks in the NICU, in that hospital. And then we were transferred back to my local hospital. And that was a massive shock to me, real shock. And I didn't expect that. It wasn't that the hospital did anything wrong. It was just I'd lost that support network of the NICU. And I'd made these lovely connections, and I'd felt, you know, I had a nice relationship with everybody there. And just to start in another hospital, and you're put in isolation first, which was a separate room, and I just felt it really knocked me for six, and was very, very difficult. And so I found that the next 5, I think we were in that hospital for about 5 weeks, that next 5 weeks, much, much harder, even though I was closer to home and I was living out. But, you know, I was also living out, and I'd been living in at the other hospital, which was much, much easier. But obviously you can't do that in most hospitals. But yeah, I was still in contact with the mums from the NICU, which was a big help. But yeah, I didn't have the same connections in the next hospital for whatever reason. And yeah, that really, really did knock me for six. And I found that very difficult. And I found the last, especially month, very, very difficult, because it just felt like it was never going to end and we were never going to leave hospital. And, you know, I spent all day, every day there. And because you want to be with your child. But it gets harder and harder, actually, as the time goes on.
When did you return then? When did you return to the UAE?
She was 7 months old.
Oh, wow. So you had a good amount of time there.
We weren't allowed to fly before 6 months because she'd been on oxygen. Okay. She'd spent quite a lot of time on oxygen. So we didn't come out of hospital on oxygen, thank goodness. But she's in the hospital, and I think it was because she was greedy. When she was feeding really fast, and her sats would go like this. So in the end, we kind of monitored it, and we realised it was only when she was feeding, so she was allowed to come off the oxygen. But yeah, so we weren't allowed to fly before then, which was fine. I didn't want to. I wanted to stay in the UK. You know, we were under the NHS, and they were doing an incredible job. And you know, it was very difficult to leave that network of people, and also my family, obviously. But yeah, to leave that comfort of the NHS was difficult, because you feel very protected.
Of course. You mentioned a charity organization that you started. Can you tell us a little bit about that?
Well, no, it's so for her first birthday, I was nervous about her first birthday because I thought the first anniversary of any situation where you've had a shock can be very difficult. And I obviously we wanted to have a nice party for her, so we invited our friends, etc. But I wanted to do something that would distract me, if I'm being honest. So we arranged for a school in Africa that I have a connection with. We bought food for them so they could have a meal, and it was kind of Ava's birthday lunch, and so we bought sort of the whole. And we're still in the process of setting some other bits up with them as well. But yeah, I just knew that could be a potential time that I would go downhill, and I wanted to, be aware of that and just sort of distract myself and do something good as well, just to do something positive. So yeah, and I think that was a good way. The other birthdays since have been fine, but it was just that first one I was nervous about. So I think it's important to go through the grieving stages and to cry when you need to and to do all those things. And I think that's really important. But equally, I didn't want to dwell too much. Yeah, and see the positives.
Right.
Because at the end of the day, we had a baby who was fine and healthy and happy and all those things. So yeah.
I want to share something here. I stole this. Can you see that?
A little pink cat. Yeah.
How tiny babies are. It's a miracle.
I know. It's incredible. And the funny thing was, when I came out of hospital, Steve was still here, so I was living by myself. And every day, and I made sure I got out the house every day, even if it was just to walk across the field over the road. But normally I would try and get to town. I'd take her in the buggy, or I'd have her in my sling. And I got stopped every 5 seconds because I was so tiny, and people had just never seen such a small baby. It was like having a celebrity baby, and people were just always stopping us. Or she's actually 3 months old, and they'd be like, oh, how is she 3 months old? And yeah.
Oh, exactly. Yes. Oh my God.
Yeah.
And that's her now.
And there she is now. Yeah. Larger than life.
I can imagine. How old is she now?
And I don't know what point. There comes a point where you, as a premi mum, you have to keep explaining that she's a premi because people go, why is she so small? Blah, 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 blah. And then I don't know what point that stops, but I realized earlier that for years, no one has asked, why is she small? And she hasn't been small for so long now. But it's funny, I just don't remember when that time stops. But it felt like it was for a long time.
crazy, right? Because now you see so many adults around you, and you just don't know who was born prematurely or not. Yesterday, the day before yesterday, we shared the story of Asli, and she said she was a premature baby, and you couldn't tell. Like, who's going to pay to tell? You know?
Exactly. So so yeah, people now comment, "Oh, she's really tall." I'm like, "Oh, okay," which is nice.
And then you have just really little people as well who may have not even been born.
Yeah, exactly.
You know what I mean? That's just their nature. They're made so.
Like my mum, she's 4'11", she's tiny, but she wasn't premature.
Oh gosh. Any parting words, any words of advice or wisdom or any words of support you want to
I would say to make sure you have a good support network around you. If you're a friend who is, and you've got, one of your friends is going through that, to just maybe send them a little message 3-4 times a week if they're in the NICU, just, "Hi, how are you?" That was a big help when I had that. I also think once we've got past the beginning stage, we've always treated her as normal. We don't think of her as premi. We're in COVID times now, so it's different. But she was playing in the dirt, and she went to nursery at 7 months, and we treated her as we normally would. And one thing I was very certain about was that she would have a healthy diet, which she does. And I remember the consultant saying to me when we were talking about breastfeeding, and she said, "You've got a lifetime of nutrition." And that really stuck with me. And I just thought, that's so true, because I know she'll be well fed. And she is one of the healthiest children I know, and she's had the worst start in life with all the antibiotics and everything, and being premi. And, she should technically have had quite a low immune system, but she hasn't. So far, and she's nearly 4, so we've been very blessed. I did give her probiotics when we came out, though, to sort of counterbalance and I think that was a big help as well. But no, I think as much as possible, when you've got through those milestones, to just think of them as normal babies when you can, and not to try and dwell on that when you know that they're okay. I think that's been good. So she has no idea she's premature. And she'll share the story one day, but yeah.
Well, that's amazing. Well, God bless you, Louisa, and for all the hardship and everything that you've been through. But yeah, you've come out of it now, and I'm so glad you have your healthy daughter. You're probably super healthy daughter, which is so great. And it's true. I really love that too, that she does have a lifetime of nutrition. So, and you're doing the best that you can for that. So that's amazing. Well, that's all the time we have for today. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much.
It's really, really inspiring. And I really do hope that your story kind of just helps or inspires or informs anybody who's watching this. So thank you. Thank you for being here.
Thank you.
Take care. Bye.
Bye.